Well, hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're taking a look at the Division Point SD70ACe and HO scale. This is a brass locomotive, and there's 4 of them in Ferromex, in Norfolk Southern, Barcode, in Union Pacific, and in BNSF. So let's take a look at what you get in the box in these HO scale brass SD70ACes. Let me add long awaited and greatly anticipated models starting right now. Now this is the finished product, so these are delivered. I did show you a sneak peek a while back. Oops, sorry about that. There's a business card in here for Dennis Bartholomew, which now runs Division Point, and his ELS train service, which does custom installations and more. Another business card, a little QR code on the back. Inside, there's no manual. It's a kind of fold out nicer paper with your functions. There's 13 functions listed on this ESU LOKSound decoder. It shows the ESU file number, it shows the CV defaults for horns, and it shows the optional horns that you can choose. And that's it for paperwork. And then you have the model itself. So a little foam, hard foam spacer there. Inside is the model, nice and wrapped tightly, like we like to see the brass here. And trying to find the seam. Well, the seam is actually usually this sticker here. So, got the sticker with the road number on it. And we just slowly unwrap it, very carefully unwrap it. And you have that soft kind of sackcloth, not really sackcloth, it's smoother than that, but soft cloth to protect it, and that outer plastic. And then you have a bunch of foam spacers for the handrails here. And we're just going to pop these out. So these are all brass, and like I said, ESU LOKSound DCC equipped. So there are all your spacers out, and there is the model unboxed. One thing right off the bat you'll hear me talk about, I may make a video about it just to get more exposure and hopefully some change in the industry, but one thing that really sets these models off right off the bat is those tinted windows. I'm a big proponent of tinted windows. Manufacturers are probably tired of hearing it from me at train shows, but there's Ferromex unboxed, and we will not unbox the others because it's the same process, but I'll show you each one starting now. Alright, we're at the nose here of the model. And all the standard SD70ACe equipment is present on this model. The snow plow with window for MU hoses, silver tipped end MU hoses. Those are also brass. Coupler cut bar. You have your coupler here, which I believe are KDs. Sand filler hatches, LED headlight, ditch lights, number boards. There are windshield wipers present, separately applied grab irons. You have your stanchions there, and your single bar antenna up on the roof. You have that Ferromex X pattern, sorry about that, X pattern there on the front, and the Mexican flag 4029. Grupo Mexico there on the side. And as we work our way back to the center, you have more of the same in terms of detail here. So looking closely, you can see the compartment door detail. There's a door latch there. Subset door here with latch. You have the isolation for the cab, which makes this little pattern here for noise and vibration isolation from the isolated cab versions. There's all your trucks with brake actuators, sanding lines, etc. You have your jacking pad here. Some warning labeling, very small, it doesn't appear to be legible. Sight glass for your fuel tank and emergency shutoff, fuel tank plumbing there. So we work our way to the rear. You can see more of the truck detail and jacking pad. You got your brake wheel, which is subset into the body, and your radiator fan housing. And there's your grills back here as well for this back fan. Sorry, this camera wants to be clunky today. On the rear, more coupler cut lever, silver tipped end, etc. You have your lens for your rear light. There's some grills there. Another grill here, and we work our way back towards the front. You have your exhaust up top and your horn and your fan grills up top, which I'll show you an up top version in a second. Here on the side, the inverter cabinet, the grills are not see-through, they're kind of mesh, so that's a difference from the Overland Models version. And also, same for these up here. They're also mesh. You have your nice cab window tinting and cab sunshade, as well as like a little armrest for the window and this little ledge here. And we're back to the front. So that's the Ferromex version. And we're going to move on to the other versions, and I'll try to fix the camera to where it's not being so clunky. Alright, here is the SD70ACe and UP. More of the same detail, except you have the PTC antenna instead, with the lighter color on the trucks. You can see a little more detail. These are roller bearing caps, so that is different. You can see again the side here, more of the detail like the plumbing going up to the fuel tank, the underbody plumbing, jacking pads, etc. If you look at it from this standpoint, handrail is pretty straight because they're brass. You can straighten them out if not. You do have lift rings, and you have the wheel here on the side. Looks like a tiny bit of paint difference there on that lift ring, rear of the radiator. Your horn placement there. And you see the battery box doors here as well. And the PTC antenna again on the front. So you can see head on where, depending on the ACE version, you have nose headlights instead of headlights in between the number boards there. So in this case, there's a plate where the headlight would be if it was on the number board. And more of the same in terms of the rest of the details, but love that dark tint to the windows. It looks very realistic. If you're rail fanning, you'll notice that on the real thing, especially the newer locomotives. Now, all of these models really shine, but for some reason that NS black is really nice on brass. As you can see here, this is the NS barcode unit. Again, more of the same detail. No need to repeat myself, but I'll give you a quick 360. There is see-through detail on that rear grill area there. And as we move this way, you got rear ditch lights. Now these, the fronts flash, the rear do not flash. So that's one thing that if I forget to mention later, I will tell you now. On the NS version, on the UP version, they're non-existent. But they're doing road name specific detail on these, obviously being brass, so that is the case. But you can kind of see that reflective appearance, especially right about here. It really makes that black pop on NS. And so it is really nice in that sense. There's a quick look at the NS barcode unit. Last but not least is the BNSF. We covered this in the pre-production. So you got a dome antenna on that, and you can really see the truck detail there. Again, the roller bearing caps that do rotate there on the side. And you can see really the nice finish of the BNSF. Really all four of these really pop just because they're brass, and that finish has a just almost a gloss, a semi-gloss at a minimum appearance. And so a quick 360 of the BNSF gives you a good idea of what that looks like. There's also other versions that aren't covered here available, and from what I understand, there's one of each road name available still, and there were only, I think, around 20 produced, so I don't think you're going to be able to find these in the secondary market very easily. Just so you have a 360 degree look or all around the locomotive, I want to show you the bottomer quick so you can see that here. And here's the top of the locomotive, so you can see kind of the tread plate walkways, the exhaust here, the horn, and the see-through fan grills on the radiator fans, along with the conduit going to the radiator fans. Now, when I provided pictures of these SD70ACes, the Division Point ones, on my Facebook page, people asked for a comparison to the Overland Models version, and I'm just going to quickly go over some differences. But one thing I do want to talk about beforehand is the fact that there are different versions of the SD70ACe. These are isolated cabs from the Division Point Models version, and these are not from Overland Models. But here's one of my Overland Models, UP SD70ACes, and I wanted to show you the differences. First thing you're going to notice is the font is a little thin on the Division Point models. It is still red with a black outline from what I can tell. It's just a thinner black outline and thinner red, and slightly thinner than, or moderately thinner than, the OMI version over here. So the OMI version is more accurate in that respect on the font that these UP SD70ACes do have. Now I'm going to offset these slightly so you can see the inverter cabinet. That's the other main difference. There is the inverter cabinet. As you can see on the OMI, has a see-through kind of deep look to it, and on the Division Point it's more of a filled-in mesh version there. So from what I can tell, that also carries over to this rear section here on that grill, as you can see on the OMI there versus here. So just a different selection of grills, which is a little bit less deep, has less depth than the OMI version there. Those are the main differences. You're going to have some cabinet configuration differences here, so that's nothing to be able to compare. The flag is a little darker on the OMI version, as you can see there. And again, with the rear cabinet grille over here, you have that same sort of depth difference on the Division Point. So those are your main differences between the two ACEs. F8 turns on the prime mover on ESU LOKSound decoders, so we'll do that. Zero is your headlight and number board lights there. As you can see, they also have a cab light. One is bell. Two is horn. It also auto rings the bell. Three independently controls the number boards. Four dynamic brakes, which we'll have to move to here, so we'll get back to those. Five is service and ground lights, which I'll have to show you in a darker environment. Six is ditch lights. I will say the color temperature on these is absolutely perfect. So certain roads have steady ditch lights and certain roads flash. I'll show you that on the NS. 7 is the cab light. So it's going to go ahead and dim that. 8 is the prime mover, as we mentioned. 9 is drive hold. 10 is independent brake. 11 is cab and service lights on when stopped. So if I hit 11, that's going to bring on the cab light again. Then when it moves, it'll turn it off. 12 is non-oscillating ditch lights, and 13 is flange squeal. Alright, we're underway here, and we're going to hit 13. So you can hear the flange squeal. You can also hear dynamic brakes. Very realistic dynamic brake whine there. You just hear that kind of whine in the background in concert with the other sounds. So those are all the sounds listed, all the functions listed. F13. Let's quickly look at the other versions. Again, perfect number board, headlight, ditch light appearance. Those oscillate on the front. And I'll show you the rear real quick. Here's the rear lights. Do not oscillate in the rear. I do not know if that can be changed with programming or if it's just a decoder output limitation. I wanted you to see the ground service lights. Those are on both sides on the front, and you can see those there, nice and bright. Here's a look inside the cab and with the ground service lights. So cab lights on, ground service lights. You can see the cab control stand inside there. See, this is what I'm talking about. I think a happy medium for manufacturers in both plastic and brass is tint the windows and then add a cab light. And for people that want figures inside, they can see them with the cab light on. But those tinted windows really make the models pop, in my opinion. Alright, let's go ahead and move this at one speed step here. Two is really starts to crawl. 1, it doesn't move much. 2 is a very, very slow crawl. As you can see, really good motor control. Not much lurch, it's just barely moving along. I bet you that would register as a fraction of a scale mile per hour. And I don't want to keep you here till midnight, so we'll go ahead and get it to the AccuTrack speedometer with a little quicker speed. Alright, it's entering the AccuTrack speedometer at 5 scale miles per hour. Or, I'm sorry, a speed step 5. We'll see what that registers in scale miles per hour. That's 1.2, so that just shows you how slow this is. It's probably a third of a scale mile per hour or less at 2 speed steps. I'll let you listen for motor noise here. We turn sound off as we check slow speed control at 3 out of 128 speed steps on my NCE per hour power cab. So we're hitting about halfway right now. If you hear the motor, it's pretty low whine. You can hardly hear anything really. So even at 3 speed steps out of 128, you're a little over half a scale mile per hour. So I will give it that. It's definitely smooth, and there's no real lurch to that. Now I wanted to zoom in so you could see the roller bearing caps in action at really slow speeds, so you can see that as it goes by, and I'll go ahead and return sound to the unit. Yeah, very, very slow speed control. Very good. Doing a pull test here. And we're sitting, looks like it's about to cap out at about 3.4. 50, 52 cars, each one should pull, so a couple of these brass aces will pull a whole realistic consist. Now, people want a comparison with Overland models, and you're looking at about the same pull test as Overland models. Overland models is just a little less, peaking out at about 3.1, where the Division Point peaks out at about 3.4. One thing we didn't do earlier is weigh these, and they're over a pound. 1 pound, 3.9 ounces. So for you guys overseas, that is 564 grams. So almost 1.25 pounds for these Division Point ACes. Well, that's going to wrap up our look at the HO scale Division Point SD70ACe all brass model. First time we've seen SD70ACes in brass since the early 2000s, late 90s with the Overland models brass SD70ACes. And there are some improvements, such as factory installed sound, which Overland models didn't offer at the time. The fact that you have ESU, which is a lot better sound technology than we had at the time. Lit cab and the lighting features, and several other features as well, including some of the more modern PTC antenna arrays. The only thing that I think is possibly a step backwards is the print on the UP numbers people have mentioned, and the inverter cabinet grills, and some of the grills that lack depth compared to those original Overland versions, but everything else is a vast improvement. And I would say that you would likely be better off, in my opinion, purchasing one if you're looking to get one than trying to find it on the secondary market due to how many are available. I think it's in the low, like under 20 or around 20 are available in terms of including pre-orders. Right now, I think Division Point is sitting with just one each of each road number or road name. So, you know, once they're gone, I think it's going to be a lot harder to find. Everything's limited production in brass, but these are extremely limited production in brass. So not as a sales pitch or anything, just simply as a point that I have no regrets ordering mine, because I don't want to have to chase them down later if I change my mind. That always gives me the option to sell later if I didn't like what I saw but I like what I see here in these models, and so I'm glad to have pulled the trigger on these, or the UP version. So, and just so to dispel any rumors, I usually don't go into this because it's really nobody's business, but I purchased the SD70ACe outright, the Union Pacific version. The other three are loaned from Division Point. So, you know, I have no real incentive to mislead you on my opinion, but if FOMO were a thing, it's definitely a thing with these. Fear of missing out is what I'm referring to, so that's why I feel this way about them. So the other three will be packed up and sent back to Division Point. I'll be keeping the UP, and but you're looking at $8,000 in models right here. And I think it's, you know, if you're looking at one and it's only costing you, you know, around $2,000, it's better now than if you miss out later. So just personal opinion. You do what you wish. I just provide you with the data, the information, and the appearance. So we'll see you next time right here on my channel. I'll leave you with a run by. Take care.